everybody, it's Keren here from tuppencecoloured.co.uk. Thank you very much for joining me today. This is the project that I've been making today. It's a little card that's 4x4 with a tiny little watercolour piece in the centre and an embossed frame. Very elegant, easy to do. Stay with me and I will show you how. The base of my card is a piece of thick very vanilla, and I've cut it to 8 inches by 4 inches, and I've scored and folded it at 4 inches. And the first thing that I'm going to do with it is I'm going to mark the centre of the reverse of the front. I'm using my ruler and a pencil, and I'm just drawing from one corner to the opposite corner, taking my time, and I'm lining my ruler up very carefully with those corner points. And there we go. And now I'm going to take one of the layering squares framelets, and I'm just lining that up carefully, taking my time again with the cross that I just drew onto that card. And when I'm happy with it, I'm going to take a couple of pieces of low tack tape, and I'm just going to stick that into place. The die is positioned exactly as I want it, nice and centrally on those cross markings. So now I'm going to bring in the base platform of my Big Shot and one clear cutting plate. I'm putting my die and the card, with the card on top and the die facing up, and I'm going to cover that with my grey squishy embossing mat. I'm going to cover that with my embossing plate. Mine's black, yours may be white if you've got one of the newer ones, and that's going to go through my Big Shot. And I'm back with my embossed card, and now I need to take the die away. Now, because of the pressure of the Big Shot, my low tack tape has stuck down quite firmly, and I'm a little bit afraid that I'm going to tear the card if I'm a bit too rough with it. So I'm using lighter fluid. Now, I believe in other countries in the world you can get a product that's known as Undo, and I understand that it is the same chemical as lighter fluid, which basically is naphtha. And although you can see that it looks quite wet there, that will actually dry, and you will never be able to tell that that there was any sticky on it at all. So all that I need to do now is to take my eraser and rub away those pencil marks. So now I'm ready to start stamping. I'm using my Stamparatus, and I'm lining the stamp up with the card, and I'm going to add a little bit of crumb cake ink. This stamp is from the By the Bay stamps, which is in the Celebration brochure this year, and that's a little bit paler than I like it, so I'm giving it another spot of crumb cake, pressing that down, and I'm now happy with that result. Now I've got a little piece of watercolour card in my Stamparatus, and still with the stamp from the same set, from the By the Bay, and again with crumb cake ink, I'm just going to stamp my image, and because I'm on watercolour paper and it's a little bit textured, I'm going to stamp it again to make sure that I've got a nice clear impression. Since I've got the Stamparatus out anyway, I'm going to use it as a base while I colour in that image that I just stamped. So I'm just coloured in the shell first of all with a bit of petal pink, and I'm just adding some bits of crumb cake here. I'm using my marker pens. These are water based, these are not the blends, and this is a little bit of Pool Party, and this is So Saffron. And I'm not being particularly careful with colouring. There's a little bit of crumb cake for some shadow underneath the shell, And now I'm scribbling onto the surface of my Stamparatus base, and I'm just picking that colour up with my aqua painter, and I'm using it as a paint. Now all of the Stampin' Up inks, ink pads, re-inkers, they all use the same ink. So if you don't have the markers, then you could just press your stamp pad down onto the surface of something shiny, like a Stamparatus base or a clear block, and you could use that as your palette. So I'm just doing a little bit of shading here, and once I'm happy with my painting, I'll just leave it to dry for a little while. Here it is, it's had some time to dry, and I've cut it out with one of the smaller dies of the layering squares. I nearly said layering circles, they're squares. And while I was at the Big Shot, I cut out a square of So Saffron card from one of the larger squares, and I'm just using an emery board, the kind you'd use to do your fingernails, just to distress that edge a little bit. And what it's actually doing, because the card is thick, it's taking away that little layer of colour, so it's giving it a kind of a subtle white edge. So next I am adding a little bit of my favourite liquid adhesive onto the back of the So Saffron square, and I'm lining it up with the embossed square on my card, so that it looks like it's sitting inside a frame. And I actually did use a smaller square than the one that I showed you that I was going to do, because when I put that one through the Big Shot, it was a little bit bigger than I wanted it to be. So now I'm going to pop some dimensionals onto the back of my piece of watercolour card with my pretty little picture on. And I've been quite generous with the dimensionals here, but I think that it will benefit from having a little bit of support behind it. Now I could have just stuck it straight onto the card if I'd wanted to, but I thought it would look nice if it was raised up from the surface a little bit. So my dimensions are in place, I've taken the backings off them, and now I'm just lining it up where I want it onto my So Saffron mat, and that is my card complete. There it is, my finished card, and I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if so, then please do come back and visit me again sometime soon. I would be tickled pink if you did that. But for now, thank you very much for joining me, and I hope I'll see you again sometime soon. Bye bye.